Institute for Veterans and Military Families, our alumni services and engagement portfolio. In today's session, we have two Capital One representatives, Luke Schwartz and Emily Alexander, who will be presenting information and integrating an interactive workshop focused on Capital One's live 1-hour business advisory sessions. Their growth consulting office hours are a free resource designed to help business owners tackle existing challenges and unlock new opportunities. Whether you're facing a specific business problem or seeking expert guidance, these sessions that they will provide insight to provide the perfect platform to gain valuable insights and advice. Capital One is committed to working together with business owners to drive their businesses forward. I also want to note that this session will be recorded and will be available to view later on demand. So I do want to go ahead and just give a brief intro about Luke. So Luke is a seasoned leader and the Senior Director of Product Management at the Capital One, and he's also a U.S. Navy veteran. Known for his expertise in product strategy and development, he's played a pivotal role in driving this company's product and innovation growth. Emily Alexander, she's a dynamic and accomplished professional. She's serving as the Senior Director of Product Management at Capital One with a robust background in product management and a strong focus on community impact and investment. Overall, Luke and Emily will be providing these great insights, and I will go ahead and share my screen in just a second. Thank you both for joining us. And thumbs up if you can see my screen. Perfect. Oh,
yeah,
Luke,
that's good. Thank you.
Go right ahead, Luke. I think you're on mute.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I guess we can get started. So thanks for that very warm introduction. I was like, wow, that person sounds really important. That doesn't sound like me. We can go to the next slide, which shows some of our team. I think that we've got at least Chris on the call. If Chris, do you want to do a quick intro before Emily and I do?
Sure. I'm Chris D'Elia. Been at Capital One for about 6 years. I'm a mobile architect working on our front-end applications. I'm passionate about volunteering for veteran events. I work as an adaptive sports instructor on the weekends, skiing, water skiing, and I love helping disabled veterans in any way I can, as well as veterans grow their business. So thank you.
And then Emily, do you want to do an intro before I do mine?
Sure. I'll do a quick one. Hi, everyone. I'm Emily. I am a project manager on our community impact and investment team. So I help to organize these office hours for our incubator and accelerator partnerships. Been doing this for a couple of years now, and I've loved to hear the stories that come out of it. And we have a great client team of experts here that will be available to facilitate office hours for you all on a weekly basis. So excited that you all are here to learn more about it, and I'll pass it back off to Luke.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, as you can see from our list here, our whole volunteer team. So these are all just Capital One employees that volunteer their time, mostly because they care about veterans. There's a mix of veterans, folks like Chris that are just allies, some military families, that kind of thing too, and military spouses or ex-military spouses. So I guess we can go to the next slide. This is a picture of me as a naval lieutenant. Several years ago, I was on the USS Ohio, a guided missile submarine where we carried up to 154 Tomahawk cruise missiles or a platoon of special forces. So that thing I'm standing in front of is kind of like a giant kind of floodable hangar bay that we use to get special forces in and out of the submarine. So anyway, I was in the Navy for about 7 years, from roughly 2003 to 2010. I'm originally from San Francisco, so that's the Golden Gate Bridge up in the upper left. I currently live back in my hometown on the West Coast. I went to Stanford. So I used a ROTC scholarship to pay for Stanford. Was at Google for over a decade, and I've been at Capital One for a little bit more than a year. So I'm relative baby compared to most of my colleagues, like Chris and others have been at the company much longer. And so we're each bringing a different part of our expertise to bear. We can go to the next thing. Thanks. So the Capital One Pro Bono program is a way of us trying to give back to our community and communities we care about, like the veteran and military spouse community. And everyone that are my kind of consultants are all just volunteers, just volunteering their time because they care about the community. So we can go to the next thing. So getting to the big picture. So why does Capital One care about kind of helping out small business? So we can get to the next thing. Is that we are still a founder-led company. In fact, I didn't realize this until I joined the company. Capital One is the only of the top 10 US banks that was founded like in the last 100 years, because we were founded, I think, in the 80s. Most of the other big banks are like go back to like 19th century kind of thing, like Wells Fargo, stagecoach days. So our founder, Rich Fairbank, is still running the company, and so we still have that kind of founder-led mentality. And we also have a mission to change banking for good, right? So usually we're not helping out founders directly with banking stuff, but we see as part of that broader mission, helping the communities we're part of, both physical communities and communities such as the veteran community. We can go to the next thing. We also get how to scale things, right? We've scaled multiple businesses from credit cards to banking to even more nascent ones like SaaS software, from 0 to 1 and from 1 to 100. So we want to help leverage that expertise to help you scale your businesses and bring them to the next stage. And then the final slide here, there's a bunch of different groups we work with. Obviously, IVMF and Bunker Labs is an important one, but there's a bunch of other various sort of accelerators and kind of founder kind of incubator type places that we work with. And we have two different ways that we partner. So you can see the office hours is the main way we'll partner with you, where we have a handful of us advising you and asking you kind of Socratic questions about your business. And then for a subset of folks that come to office hours, if you have a more longer engagement that you want to propose, so like, hey, I really need help with a particular area of finance or like website development or whatever it is, then a few times a year we'll do a longer engagement with a specialized team to do these what we call pro bono projects. So first we'll talk about office hours on the next few slides. So first, what are these office hours? So they're roughly once a week. You can sign up. There's I think a Google form or a Google Calendar you sign up for. And it's you as the founder come. If you need to, you can bring one or more of your employees, but usually it's just the founder. And then we'll bring roughly 2 to 3 of the folks that you saw on that first slide there, people like Chris and me, who have a diverse experience. So like Chris is an expert on a bunch of different like full stack software development. I'm an expert on product management and stuff related to product. We've got people that are experts in finance and more the business side, that kind of thing. And our goal is to help you with whatever it is you need help with. And it's just consulting, right? We're not providing you with any financial services, right? Like we're not there to pitch Capital One credit cards or whatever. But we're just there to provide our expertise to you and to help you figure out how you can get your business better, whatever the problem is you need to solve. And it's kind of like one of those things where you get out what you put in. So if you come with good questions, you come with good problems, then it's easier for us to help you out. I think we can go to the next slide. So just some examples of things we've helped people with. So one is problem definition. Like what are the problems you're trying to solve? Like trying to figure out your customer. We'll talk a little bit later about something called product market fit, which is big in the tech world, and I think big for any business. We'll talk more about strategy sometimes, about like, hey, I'm thinking about expanding my product line. How should I think about doing that? I may be thinking about expanding what markets I go after, how to pitch your competitive advantage against your competitors. Sometimes we'll talk more about the specifics of the product and the technology, like, hey, what technology should I use for my website or for like if it's more of a software product, how do I build my software? How do I make sure that it's well managed so it's not going to be overladen with tech debt or vulnerable to cybersecurity concerns? And then we'll also talk about finance side, like, hey, like the nuts and bolts of your business, your profit, your loss, where can you cut costs, where can you raise your revenue, how much, what are the different ways that you can get investment, and what are the pros and cons of those investments? And also like ways to make it sustainable, right? Sometimes people are starting off as a side gig, and that's totally fine, right? Because maybe your business isn't self-sustaining yet, so you can't go full-time into it. So how do you figure out when you're ready to jump from part-time to full-time? That's another thing that we frequently talk about. I think we can go to the next slide. So this is some of the logistics. There's a Google Calendar booking page that you can click on and sign up for a session. There's roughly one per week. They tend to be Wednesdays at noon Eastern. And you'll get a calendar invite with a Zoom link, and the rest is up to you. Like there's a little bit of a questionnaire there where you fill out what you're interested in. But anything you can give us ahead of time, like, hey, here's my business, here's the problem I'm trying to solve, then it's easier for us to come prepared to help you. I'm going to briefly on the next few slides discuss what we call the pro bono projects, the longer engagement, which again is for a subset of the folks that come to office hours. If there's something where you need a longer engagement, then we can do that. So we can see on the next slide, these tend to be like a couple of months, roughly. Again, it might be as few as 3, as many as a dozen experts, and it tends to be on a specific project with specific expertise. And you can see here some of the ways that we evaluate it, right? So, hey, I have this particular need, like I'm trying to develop a business plan and I need someone that knows risk management really well so that I can fill out the risk management part of this business plan. Or, hey, I'm trying to revamp my website and I need expertise on how to design it because right now it's kind of a mess and I need like kind of, designer user experience expertise on how to lay out my website. Or, hey, I have this technology question where I need someone that really knows back-end infrastructure really well so I can choose between, different cloud providers and, what my technology stack should be. Those are examples of things where like, if you really want to get into the details, it might be more than we can do in just an hour. And thus you might apply for getting one of these pro bono projects. You can see on the next slide there are a bunch of examples of things that we've done in the past with various founders. The one caveat there is the legal one, we're only authorized to work in a handful of states. So if you happen to be based in those states, then good for you. But there's lots of other things non-legal where we can help out people anywhere. Again, you can see examples here like brand and marketing, communications, more the tech side, more the product side. So again, this is just kind of whet your appetite about things that we could theoretically help you with. Most people, and the front door to this is the office hours. So first come to office hours. And but if you have an idea for a pro bono project, mention it during the office hours, and we'll consider putting you in the hopper for the next time we do a pro bono project. Any questions before? We're going to do like a little mini workshop on product market fit, but any questions that folks want to either drop in the chat or come off mute? Okay, well, we can go forward, and if you think of things as we go along, feel free to drop them in the chat. So we want to cover product market fit because this is something that often comes up during our office hours sessions. So just to get us kicked off, if you could answer the following question in the Zoom chat. If you had to describe your business in one sentence, how would you describe it? And if you could just, we'll take maybe 4 minutes and let folks drop that in the chat. Hey, if you're still working on your statements, please keep them coming. We got some amazing ones already in the chat here. Um, as we go through this little workshop, I encourage you to reference maybe your own statement as well as maybe some of the other founders that are on the call to see how your statement does and doesn't match up with some of the things we talk about with product market fit. Because I suspect that at least a handful of you might be able to um, kind of tighten up your one sentence pitch um, and use that as a tool for growing your business. So I think we can go to the next slide. So next slide just describes like what is this product market fit thing? If you listen to anybody in the tech world, especially tech startup world, they won't shut up about product market fit. This is a big thing in the tech world, but it's not just tech. Like really, this is any business, right? Because any business is providing products and or services. And the product market fit is what's the connection between your product or service with your market, right? With your customer group, right? And if you have that strong product market fit, it's going to drive really strong demand, repeat customers, and a growing business, right? So some people see this as like when smoke turns into fire, is what I've heard it sometimes described as, right? Where it's, it's not just like, hey, little bits of interest here and there. It's like, oh, now I feel like I'm not pushing my products and services on people. They're pulling it from me, right? That's what I've heard. I've not been a founder myself, but that's what I've heard founders talk about it, what it feels like, right? So you can see examples here where, people really need your product, where sales happen easier. You're not having to push your sales as much. You get people that are basically your retention rate goes up, where people are returning or renewing, people referring other folks. They're paying a sustainable price, right? You might have to do a little bit of loss leading or do some work for free or almost free to get the first few clients in the door, but that's not sustainable, right? Like product market fit is a sustainable price. And sort of your growth feels natural. So you can see on this next slide, this is another example of, I forget who came up with this, but there's these sort of 3 E's where the first phase of a business is typically exploration, where you're trying to find your product market fit. Once you find it, then there's expansion. And then once you start once you're a very mature business, then it's maybe more exploitation, right? Where it's your growth rate is not as strong, but you're starting from a higher base, right? So some of the big, Fortune 500 companies are typically in the exploit phase, right? At least for their more mature products, right? So as you can see, the exploration phase is pretty bumpy, right? Like there's a lot of ups and downs, and I imagine many of you have maybe experienced that. You might reflect on, okay, have I hit this inflection curve with product market fit where now it feels like there's more of a pull for my business for my products and services than it is me pushing on it? Or does it still feel like the up and down? I mean, there's still going to be ups and downs to any business for sure. Like this is smoothing out a lot of curves here, right? But does it feel more like I'm the left side or the right side of that? And it might be different places for different products you have. You might have one product that's really selling well and another one where it hasn't quite found it, right? Even big companies have this, right? Like Capital One started as kind of a Main Street credit card company and eventually introduced a more premium, like, card for people that like maximize points and travel and all that, right? So even though we were in the expansion or maybe exploitation phase for our Main Street cards, when we first got into premium travel cards, we were in the exploration phase, right? So an individual business can be in multiple phases at once. So this is just another way of kind of visualizing what product market fit might feel like. On the next slide, some specific examples of how it might feel, right? Like one big one is marketing, right? Typically, the conventional wisdom is don't sink a lot of money and time into marketing until you've hit product market fit, right? Unless you know that you're really well meeting the needs of a particular market segment. It's going to be hard to know who to market to, right? So your marketing is going to be not as efficient. And then B, even if you're targeting them well, if there's not a good product market fit, that marketing might end up being wasted, right? Like, you may not get the sale from that, or it's less likely to get the sale from that, right? I imagine you've also seen this, where, people kind of show interest, but they don't actually buy. We'll talk about a little more about that in a minute. Again, there's that repeat sales, referrals, retention, that kind of thing. Whereas with product market fit, again, it's more of that pull, right? Where you can fairly efficiently leverage marketing, right, to get new people in the door, and where it's more sustainable. I'll show on the next slide is an example of why you might be hearing from people, oh yeah, that sounds interesting. Oh yeah, I might buy that, but then they don't actually buy it. And this is a book that we recommend to a lot of founders, especially folks that are kind of trying to find that product market fit. It's called the Mom Test, and it's called the Mom Test because the author is saying you need to ask questions that even your mother would answer honestly, right? So the idea is like, they give an example of like, hey mom, I have this, I think the example they give is like a recipe app. They're like, hey mom, would you buy a recipe app? And your mom likes you, or at least most people's mom likes them. I don't know about your family, but most people's moms will be like, oh, sure, sure. Like I would buy that. But like, would she actually? Probably not, right? So you got to ask questions that even your mother would answer honestly. So as an example, rather than would you use this, here's this hypothetical product, would you use it? Instead, you say, when was the last time you had this particular problem? Can you walk me through what you did? Right? Because that's something where it's an objective thing. It's not them trying to, because basically people want to tell you what you want to hear, right? Especially if they know you, right? So this is a way of getting past that to get to, okay, just how big of a problem is this that I'm solving? Just how useful might this solution be? Often you'll notice in this book, a lot of the questions are less about your solution and more about the problem to understand the problem really well and how important that problem is to your customer base or prospective customer base. On the next slide, we have a couple other pieces of advice that we frequently give. One is about specialization. So I noticed like for some of the statements that you've got in the chat, very specialized, right? But a few of them are not. And I would encourage for those of you that have a more general kind of company description to consider more specialization. And there's a number of reasons for that. So one is that like all of our businesses we're working with here are relatively small businesses, right? So this way you can be kind of the big fish in a small pond, right? You can, yes, it's a smaller pond, but you can own the whole thing or you can own a bigger piece of it. And it's also easier for you to kind of market yourself to that smaller audience, right? In fact, you can even maybe provide services and products that kind of the big players wouldn't be able to. So I'll give you an example. Like there are a number of businesses that leverage either Office 365 or Google Cloud or in Google Workspace, where they're like a value add on top of Microsoft and Google's cloud-based services, right? And what they do is they provide the hand holding and the high touch stuff that like a Google or Microsoft will never do, right? Like not to a smaller business anyway. Just because it doesn't scale, right? Like if you're a giant, business, you're not going to be able to scale up that like personal touch. But you as a small business might be able to, right? So you're exploiting that difference between what a big business can do and what a small business can do, especially if you find a particular niche, right? That's helpful. There's also this weird psychological thing. It's about like inductive versus deductive reasoning. It's easier for someone to start with something specific and generalize than to start with something general and make it more specific. So as an example, like let's say I told you my target market is, early stage, like pre-seed to stage A, B2B SaaS companies, right? Like I told you that was my target customer. And then one of you knows, well, there's a friend of mine that has a B2B SaaS company, but it's Series B or C, right? So it's a little bit later than what Luke said. You could probably generalize to say, well, like it's probably close enough. I can introduce that person to Luke or ask Luke if he's interested in meeting that person. But if I just say like, oh, my target customer is any business, well, you might not match your person that who runs that B2B SaaS Series B company with me because you're like, well, I don't know. Like you just said any business, that could be anything. Like I don't know. Like it's just hard to match, right? So I know that there's always folks are worried about specializing because they don't want to, put themselves in a box or paint themselves in a corner. But just recognize that there's this human psychological trait that when in doubt, it's probably better to slightly over specialize than to slightly over generalize. And then finally, there's storytelling, right? Is that once you've got sort of what you think is a strong product market fit and a good specialization and a good way of presenting it, then you want to fine tune how you tell your story. And one thing that's interesting, especially about small businesses, and this is something we talk to almost every founder about, is you are at least part of the product, right? Like even if you're selling physical goods, you're selling a story around it. And part of that story is you as the founder. And most of you are military veterans or in some way connected with the veteran community. And that's often people like, or at least in the US, have a a soft spot in their hearts for veterans, right? So and many veterans have really interesting experiences and stories to tell. And we've seen a lot of founders like kind of shy away from having their name and their face as prominent. But I would encourage you to consider like how you can turn your personal story into the story of your brand or connect it in some way. Often there's a really interesting story for how you got into this work, right? And if you make that into part of your pitch, that might be really compelling, right? And it's the kind of thing, like think about it like, would someone on the radio or, a local TV station want to interview you and talk about your business, right? It's those stories that they usually are trying to tell. And it's less about like, oh, so and so made this really cool product that solves this problem. It's like, hey, this person has this deep personal story about why they built this thing and how it helped them out, or maybe someone that they love. And now they're going to share that with the world. Like that latter part where it's part of that personal story is more compelling than the just, oh, I have this product and solves this problem. So anyway, the other bit here is just like what problems you solve for folks that are doing more service-based businesses. It helps to kind of talk about like, hey, here's these specific people I helped. This is where like testimonials also help for more of especially a service-based business. But again, that's part of your story, right? Like, things were bad, I made them better, right? Or this problem was bad and I made that problem better. We can go to the next thing. So this is a bit just kind of in a nutshell, things to think about when you're trying to get your product market fit. One is getting really tight on who your ideal customer is. And again, there's kind of a tension here between having a large TAM or total addressable market versus a really targeted one where there's customers that will actually buy. You want to find kind of the sweet spot where it's a large enough market where you can have a sustainable business, but not so large that it's hard for you to target them and it's hard for you to, find that fit with them. This other one, this is a PM that I respect, talks about you want to sell painkillers, not vitamins, right? It's easy for someone to stop biting vitamins. They're like, I don't really need this, but like they need the painkiller, right? Because that's going to solve their pain point, right? The more urgent, the more important the problem is that you're solving, the better, right? So you might think about that, like, hey, am I solving the right problem yet? And you might, like lots of businesses end up pivoting, right? So you may end up pivoting to something related where there's a stronger need there. And then finally, this is obviously the big thing is like, are people paying and returning, right? Do you get that pull? Do you get that retention? Do people seem to want to pay money for this product or service? And that's all of our prepared slides. Any other questions that came up? Feel free to either drop them in the chat or just come off mute.
So I have a question. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, wonderful. So I just want to make sure that I'm understanding correctly. You said that the office hours are on Wednesdays normally, and I know today's a Monday. So is this kind of like a precursor thing where we're kind of just showing interest and then we would then go on to follow on Wednesdays? Or is this just kind of a different, I just want to get clarity because I'm a little confused on that.
Yeah, absolutely. This is just an introduction to tell you how the process works. Linda posted the link where you can sign up for the next Wednesday slot that's available.
Okay, now I did look before in the past when I was interested in this, and it was like booked out for literally months and months and months. There was like no way to get in on. That's why I was kind of shocked. Like, understanding, is this something where it's actually you can get into it, or is there a list? And do they change up the people each Wednesday, or do you go in each Wednesday? Just for clarity, because in the past, like I said, and when I looked, it was like 3 months booked out, and I just was like, I don't know how this is working.
Yeah, so I know that we've had kind of like ups and downs with availability. If you have a problem where it's more urgent, you can get in touch with the IVMF folks and we might be able to do like one off or whatnot. But yeah, like sometimes there's availability like in the next couple weeks. Sometimes it takes a couple months to get on the calendar. So I can't promise that there will always be availability like right away. But I know that like as of, I don't know, not that long ago, we had availability out like maybe a month or two, I want to say. That's typically, I think like last year we averaged about a month or two out.
Yeah, I'll say our office hours open to try and maintain like fairness to everyone. They open on a 2-month rolling basis. So frequently check the link. I'd also say just get in touch with like the folks at IVMF because they also keep tabs on how often slots are opening up and how often they're booked. And so check on your own basis. They open on that 2-month rolling period. And if you're having trouble getting into them, I'd say just keep tabs with IVMF, your IVMF points of contact. They should be able to let you know when a slot is available.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. That was probably one of the key things, just to know that span. So then now we have more of a realistic time frame versus thinking like you just can never get into it. So to have knowing it's 2 months, is rolling, then at least you can plan better. So thank you.
Absolutely. Other questions? And again, feel free to drop them in the chat if you don't want to do it live.
Good morning. Just more of a comment than a question. There's a lot to unpack, a lot to kind of review. So I'm just going to go ahead and compile all that and schedule some time with you guys. So
Yeah, absolutely. Also, like if folks want to mention, we did the exercise where you wrote your business statement. If there's the discussion of product market fit has made you think about, maybe I want to tweak this, and maybe I want to go after a slightly different market segment, or maybe I haven't or have found my product market fit. Oh, and just to answer Chad's question, would M&A be an appropriate topic? Yes, we have discussed this in the past. We are obviously not, lawyers and we don't have any fiduciary, role here. So we don't replace the due diligence that you should be doing for M&A, but we can definitely advise you on how to think about an M&A thing, and how that might affect your business.
Luke, sorry to butt in here, but I do see a question from Erin Roth. She asks, I would like to notify Capital One of my catering services and corporate team building classes. Whom would she connect with? Or if this is like a, offline thing, then we can, we're happy to make that the introduction.
Yeah, so again, to be clear, just because sometimes people are confused about like the purpose of these office hours is not to engage with Capital One's business. So like we're not marketing credit cards to you, or like sometimes people are like, hey, how do I get a Capital One loan? Like that's not what the business what this these office hours are for. That being said, Aaron, I noticed you're right there in Tyson's Corner, real close to us. So uh, I can ask around, like who runs those sort of things. I know that there is a catering department that works with a number of local businesses. So I can check in and see, hey, do you know about this local business? But just to be clear, that's not the purpose of the office hours.
I had one other question. Is it realistic that they work with businesses that are more on the international scale versus US based? Or is that something that there might not be people set up to answer those questions?
If there's international business, so my previous job was in internationalization at Google, so I worked a lot with teams that were doing international business. It's like Capital One doesn't have a whole lot of specialty in in international stuff. So it kind of depends, like if you want to know details of international compliance and stuff, we're probably not the right folks for you, but we can definitely help you with, whatever the market expansion might be. So if you're someone that, like, let's say you found your product market fit and now you're looking to expand your business, there's lots of ways to expand, right? Geography being one of them, right? Whether it's to new states, new countries, new whatever, right? So that's definitely something we've talked to founders about. Right. Cassandra, I don't know if we want to wrap it up or if we want to I'm also happy to take questions offline if folks want to contact us. Probably via IVMF is probably the best place.
Yep. And Luke, thank you. And Emily, thanks so much for your time today and sharing all of this great information, these valuable resources for our veteran and military spouse entrepreneurs. So as Luke mentioned, if you have any questions, don't be afraid to reach out to us. I'm going to go ahead and include our IVMF alumni email here in the chat. Um, like I said, don't be afraid to reach out if you need anything. And we will be following up with a link to this video to view on demand, along with the calendar for you to, submit your interest in the session and book that on your calendar as well. Overall, these great pieces of information are for you to, take in and then help with your business growth. But again, I do want to thank Luke, Emily, for your time today. We really do appreciate it. So we'll be following up with some more information. And like I said, if you have any other questions, don't be afraid to reach out. But hopefully everyone has a great day. Like I said, need anything, we're here for you.